Verbally Effective, your double E, Ina Esco here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Verbally Effective podcast. I see that the world is opening up now. I want you guys to definitely be safe out there. Today I have with me a leader in our community. I actually worked with him last year on a huge event. We're going to talk about it today, but we're going to walk through his journey. I am here with the founder and CEO of Frayser Community Schools, Dr. Bobby White. How are you, Bobby?
Absolutely wonderful.
Absolutely wonderful. Yes, well, you're looking good on this Friday. I know that, we are all trying to get used to the world opening back up. How is that for you?
I'm taking the precautions and being a mature citizen, but extremely excited about us returning to some sense of normalcy. I'm not sure if that'll happen anytime soon, where we will be totally secure and safe and just doing what we did 2 years ago or 18 months ago. But I'm adjusting.
Yes. Are you still, being masked up, or did you get the shot? What kind of precautions?
A little of both, sister. A little of both. That shot thing is personal, but I will say that I have been vaccinated.
Okay.
And I'm the mask thing. I think that it's just respectful to those who have not, and for those who their ideologies don't connect with the science, I'm fine with that. Again, everyone has their own way of thinking, and I just think that we should just for our fellow man be very respectful in how we are approaching things, and so that's how I do it.
Yes, definitely. Well, we are going to get all up in your journey today, Bobby. Let's start at the beginning. Where are you originally from?
I am, as I like to talk with the kids and tell the kids, I was one of the original Frayser boys.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God. Now we invented the gangster walk. Okay, we invented the gangster walk.
Okay.
So I'm from Frayser. Frayser, and folks would generally say Frayser / North Memphis. But yeah, I'm Frayser. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So tell me about growing up in that Frayser, North Memphis area, because I've had a lot of guests from North Memphis, and they have so many experiences with growing up and having such, a wonderful childhood. Tell me about you growing up in Frayser.
Yeah, I think, so I'm 49, and Frayser today is a tad bit different than it was when I was there. I actually went to elementary school in LA.
Okay.
From kindergarten through about 4th grade. I was in Los Angeles. As my pops being a musician, that was where we needed to be at the time. Definitely born in Memphis, but we moved to LA, and I spent those primary years in LA. And when we moved from LA back to Memphis, we moved to Frayser, and the community was markedly different than it is now. We moved back at the time when there was this flux of the companies, International Harvester, Firestone, Kimberly-Clark. All of those companies were closing, and Frayser had been a white working class community, and that's who lived there up until about the mid 80s, and then they started the transition out as a result of many of those companies closing down, And so there was a perfect storm of a lot of folks moving out of a community and the projects being closed down in the city. And so Frayser started to overnight become a community that looked markedly different than it had what it was built for. You had a lot of affordable housing, beautiful landscape, trees, and just a community that was built for folks that did not look like me. That opened up because they all moved out because there was not, they didn't have the source of income, and they moved out, right? And so the affordable housing was there, and we started to move in, or folks started to move in. And to answer your question more definitively, my time, it was like any other kid, at that time in history, we're talking about mid 80s, I'm a fifth, sixth, seventh grader. Good Times was what I watched every day.
Yes.
And honestly, I didn't even recognize that I was poor because I actually thought that this is kind of the way all Black people live, and my experience at Frayser High School, it wasn't one of those where I'm a diehard, I love Frayser High School kind of thing. It was full of a number of faculty and staff that did not look like me, were a bit frustrated by the change of the student population that was coming into the building. And we dealt with a lot of challenges as high schoolers, and when I entered Frayser High School as a result of that. But the Frayser community, whether it was Pershing Park or Greenbrier or Corning Village or any of the apartments that I may have stayed in before my parents settled into a home on Willowwood, it was, hey, we're just kids. This is our community. We don't know anything about what's going on in the world. We want to ride our bikes. We want to go to school. We want to have friends, and we just want to be happy. Which is, interestingly enough, 30, 40 years later, it's the same thing all kids want.
Definitely.
So my experiences are no different from any other child who grows up in a neighborhood where people care about them, and they just have a normal life. That was my childhood. Nothing extravagant. I don't have like these fantastic stories to tell about what happened or whatever. No, I was a normal kid in Frayser who happened to be excited about life.
Yeah.
I will have to add though, because of my pop's idea around, or my pop's career of music, I was always connected on some front with entertainment in LA and in Memphis. And so I had my first single at the age of 9, where my pops and I, through Sun Studios and Stax and Still Axton, released a single when I was 9. And those who don't know me don't necessarily know that I sing, I play instruments, and that's what my real talent is. Even though I didn't want to sing, I wanted to play sports, right? Folks who are musically talented want to play sports.
Exactly.
And folks who play sports want to play an instrument and want to sing, right? So I was kind of caught in the mix of those things. but yeah, I had that normal kid life. My parents were super supportive, and I just live that life. Just a regular kid.
Well, that's interesting to hear that you had a single at the age of 9. I'm gonna have to pull that out the archive, Dr. White.
Yeah, I can send that to you. I
Yes,
can send that to you.
send it
Send
to
that to you.
me.
But by no means am I the star. My dad is my pops is always the star. Silky White.
Okay,
The name of our group was Silk, Satin, and Lace. He was Silky or Silk. I was Satin, and the group was Lace. Okay.
wow, what a name! What a name! Yeah, send it to me, Dr. White.
Will do. Will do.
But that's so interesting what you just told me about growing up in Frayser, in the 80s with, some of those challenges that you faced with all of the changes, right? Now, as a kid, did your parents have to talk you through those changes of what was going on? Because in your mind as a child, you're just trying to get through the day, do your work, do the activities that you're interested in. Did your parents have a lot of advice for you how to guide through these changes at that time?
No, I mean, respectfully, um, I think, my parents are from that generation where they thought that you dealing with adversity built character. I'm not sure if they even recognize the movement in the community and the change. My pops was busy trying to make a living.
Right.
So trying to him being connected the way that I am around, partisan politics and, racism and all of those things were not a part of the things that he talked about all of the time. What I did notice though was him being impacted by things that I would later, and even in the moment, like I think this is important for people to understand about me. From the very beginning, I think one of my superpowers is my gut helps me to understand what people are going through. And I always knew that he was going through some stuff that I didn't necessarily understand. And what he was going through was the racist ideologies of the South. My dad's from Detroit, and my mom's from Memphis. But he was always torn with being on these jobs where he was being talked to a certain way, and he didn't recognize that, and he would lose a lot of jobs because his spirit was different from a lot of Southerners because just of where he was from, right? And so as far as them understanding what was going on for me, and I'm moving the needle to high school, they recognize, well, Bobby always makes good grades. We don't really have to worry about him, so we don't have to talk about him a lot. As long as their report card still says he has a 3.5 to a 4.0, then we're fine. So there wasn't a lot of conversations about what are you actually dealing with. Gotcha. I was able to navigate what was happening in high school through building a relationship with who I now see as my brother, Aldwin Pearson. By the way, this is his design of this shirt that I'm wearing. And he and I became friends in about the 7th or 8th grade. And we would really talk about all of the issues that were taking place. And until this day, we probably talk at least once a day or every other day. Yes. Most Black men do not have that type of support system. And that's huge because, people always talk about this trauma, and racism within itself is traumatic. And when you don't even know that you're faced with it without having someone to just kind of talk to about life in general, it could really weigh you down and afford you the opportunity to make excuses about not being able to succeed at the level that you should. So my parents did the best that they could, and they did not. I did not suffer as a result of them not talking to me. But no, they didn't even understand what we were actually going through.
Yeah.
And I think, I'd have to say, in the work that we do as Frayser Community Schools, I want to make sure that our students know we recognize what they are faced with, not only in our schooling system, but in America as a whole, and that we're intentional about providing them with the supports so that they'll be able to succeed in spite of.
Gotcha. Wow. Interesting. Well, let's talk about when you graduated high school. What was next for you?
So, wow. I after I left Frayser High School, I actually ended up at UT Martin.
Okay.
I went there and attended there, and I figured I was going to play football. I love sports.
Was that the motivation to go to UT Martin? Was it football?
No. The motivation to go to UT Martin was my cousin Cheryl.
Okay.
Cheryl Freeman.
Cousin Cheryl.
She is the star of our family. Delta. Beautiful, intelligent, and she was there, and she was the first person on either side of our family to attend college.
Okay.
And it's like, man, I want to be like Cheryl, So if I can go to UT Martin and play football, then Cheryl's going to be like, oh, that's my little cousin, right? And so I ended up at UT Martin. It didn't work out for me when I was there.
Why not?
I wasn't ready for college.
Okay.
I did a lot of stuff at UT Martin where I was not a mature student, and I needed to leave there. And so I came home and I ended up having a daughter.
Okay.
And my daughter's 29 now. I'll let you know how long ago that was.
Yes.
And my daughter just so happened to be deaf.
Okay.
And so, it was the reckoning for me as a young man, being a single father, that I needed to really reflect on who I was and where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be, so that I would be the model and the example for my daughter. When I left UT Martin, I was involved in some unsavory things, and some things I'm not proud of. And so she shaped the next 10 years of my life, because for me, there was no way, understanding the type of parents that I had and understanding, what type of parent I wanted to be, because I wanted to be them plus some, and I had to ensure that I became a better man, a better young man, very young man. And so I ended up attending, and at the time, I experienced some challenges to where I ended up in a Memphis shelter. A lot of folks, most folks don't know that about me, that right there on Vance is where I was in the Memphis shelter, my daughter and I. And at the time I attended what is now Southwest, but I was at Shelby State. I was there for a couple of years, maybe a year and a half, and earned Associate of Arts, Associate of Science in General Education, and received scholarship to attend LeMoyne.
Gotcha.
And that's when I ended up at LeMoyne. And I like to always say that LeMoyne and Dr. Randolph Mead Walker are the reasons for my leadership. I I've always been school always came easy for me, right? My gift a long time ago, like at this point at 49, but my gift a long time ago is I can read anything and just pull it back up. Literally, I could pull the page back up. So when I was taking a test, I'd be like, oh, I remember that page. And I would just regurgitate the answer. That's the reason why I struggled in math. You can't regurgitate answers, right?
Right.
You can't regurgitate answers in math. So Randolph Meade Walker, I'll never forget the day I showed up for a presentation at LeMoyne. And I was in jeans and a t-shirt being, Bobby, Bobcat, as my partners would call me.
Bobcat.
And, or the cat burglar, and he said, you're not presenting with that on. He said, I see there's one day you're going to lead at a level that you don't even understand right now. And I'm not going to accept anything less than that from you. And, I went to the Goodwill and got me a couple shirts and some ties and a little briefcase, and I came back. And to this day, most people don't even recognize me if I don't have a suit on.
Right.
And that was all because of Dr. Randolph Meade Walker at LeMoyne Owen College. And I swear by LeMoyne Owen College in that era and moving forward in HBCUs as a whole, that they recognize talent and they cultivate it and help you to become who you were supposed to be. Whereas UT Martin would have never saw me. They saw that social security number and that dude sitting in the back of that classroom, and they looked at my paper and it was what it was, right? And so I ended up graduating really high in my class at LeMoyne Owen. I was a part of so many things, the Poetry Society, the African Society. I used to actually travel around the country and talk about issues related to things going on the African continent. We were like, oh, you're from Africa? Yeah, I know, but I get this, okay? I get this,
This
right?
is what I do.
Yeah, this is what I do, right? And so I love what happened to me at LeMoyne Owen. It made me believe that I was supposed to lead.
Yes.
Again, I graduated near the top of my class, and I ended up, as a result, being recruited to work for the federal government.
Okay.
In property management. And I did that for a couple of years. It was just too much travel, given the fact that I had a daughter with a disability. Want to make sure it's clear, my daughter was my life at the time. Okay. So even though I had the opportunity to go to the University of Nigeria for my graduate studies, because of my commitment to the continent of Africa and the African diaspora and everything about us. But I couldn't take a child who had a disability to another continent, you know? And so anyway, I ended up deciding that job, the job for working with the government, was not what was best for me. Came back to Memphis, where I had the support of my parents. And I started teaching.
Okay.
I started teaching. Yep. Started teaching.
That's when you entered the Memphis City School System, correct?
I did. That's when I entered the Memphis City School System. Tony Wall, the principal at Cypress Middle School, was so interesting. Mr. Wall had been the assistant principal at Frayser High School. And when I walked in for the interview, he was like, you're the kid used to cut class that I used to beat that tootie.
He remembered you.
Yeah. And I listen, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get this job. I'm done. Right? And he was like, oh, no. You don't even have to interview. Oh. You got a degree? You have a teacher certification? Or if we can get you a practitioner's license or whatever, you get what you about to walk into. He's like, come back Monday. He didn't even interview me.
Hired. You're
I'm
hired.
hired. I was hired on the spot. And I walked back in Monday and he gave me a teacher's edition and some chalk.
Get to work. Look,
Get to work. Exactly.
So
Yes,
how
ma'am.
was that transition for you? You know, you had all of this leadership schooling at LeMoyne Owen College, top of your class, get the government job, you know, excelled in that, but your daughter was a priority, came back to Memphis. I'm going to teach. How was that transition for you? Was it an easy transition? And, you know, what challenges did you face?
Oh my God. I don't know. Are you in my mind right now? This is amazing. You're amazing. It was the most challenging transition, even more so than me transitioning from principal to CEO. Like at that time, so I had been in corporate America. You know, and what I did for the government is I procured contracts, right? So, you know, folks would fly me around and, you know, if the government needed a contract, it just say the federal building in Atlanta needed a security service. And all of the security companies would fly me into their companies. We would talk and they would help me to understand why they were the best fit. Right. That's with you. Yes. That's essentially where I started to become a scotch drinker. That's where I started to smoke cigars way before it became popular. Right. You know, that's where I was on the golf course because that's where the business deals were made. You know, so coming into the classroom, I had almost forgotten where I was or where I'd come from. Not in not in a way that where it was disrespectful to students, but I didn't connect immediately that that's you. These babies that sit in front of you, that's you all over again. I was, you know, look, I'm steeped in like everything about me. I was woke before all these other folks started being woke. And so everything about me was pro-Black and, you know, again, my major is history and, you know, all of the things about critical race theory and the African diaspora and these things are like interwoven into the DNA of my synapses, right? And so I thought that I was just going to impart that knowledge to students. And they were just kind of sitting out there like, who's this dude? And there was like not a lot of training because I had a degree, but I didn't go to school for teaching. Right. And so I didn't, the pedagogical side of the work, I didn't have. And so that first year I would come home and I would reach out to my best friend, Odwin, and I'd be like, man, it's not for me. I can't do this. And I think what ended up happening was, I know. I ended up being given, because of, by default, coaching every sport at the school, right? So I did not talk about, I did play football and ran track and played baseball at Frayser High School, right? And so when I was at Cypress, Mr. Wall decided, hey, you're one of the only men here that can command respect. You're going to coach. Well, I need a coach. So I ended up coaching my second year there, football, baseball, basketball, and track, right? And so what ended up happening with that is I still wasn't a great teacher. I wasn't a good teacher there, but I started to build relationships with students. They started to know who I was, and the respect just started to happen. And so then you walk into a classroom and everybody is like, that's Coach White. And then there was like a responsibility on my end to ensure that they got something from me. There was no longer this, well, they don't see me the way I think they should see me. It became, man, this is my family. This is my family. North Memphis, Frayser, many of the students that were there, their parents or cousins I might have known from being in the area. And the magic started to happen. The magic started to happen. And it got good to me, you know, and I was like, man, this is what I'm supposed to be, you know. And so the interesting fact is those students who were with me back in 99, 2000, those students, when the situation happened at the bridge a couple years back in Memphis, of course in Memphis, because it's where we are, I got inboxes from students saying, Coach White, what should we do?
Oh.
That was the moment. And I know, like, as educators, we rarely get that affirmation of understanding what we meant to students. That was the moment when I realized they was listening. Like, what should we do? And they were asking, where you at? Why you ain't down there with us? Right.
What was your advice, Dr. White?
My advice to them was everyone has their place in the moment and what they should or should not do. I said the things that I helped you all to understand about the system, the institutions, racism in America, I want y'all to hold those things dear to you and understand if you feel that you should be there to protest right now, then that's where you should be. Okay. And my role right now is to advise you and even reach out to Rollins and say, hey, because he's someone that, you know, I have a relationship with, and say, you know, a lot of my babies are on that bridge. They're watching. They want to know what a Black male leader is going to do in this situation. Yeah. Make sure you're a representative of who we want them to be as they as they get older and mature, and that we're not reinscribing white supremacy with the decisions that we make in real time. And I thought that it was flawless with how he handled it. And of course, he became our chief after that, right? It is. You know, he became our chief after that. He handled it flawlessly. But I just, that's something that means a lot to me, because when they reached out, it was just one of those moments. It was like, man, that was 15 years ago or longer. Like, they got it, and it's still there, you know. So yeah, the transition was tough, but it started to work and it started to make sense. And I ended up loving being in education.
Yes. And you know, you mentioned that you were a coach for several sports, and I played a lot of sports in high school. And it's one thing about a coach, you never forget a coach, because, you know, you spend a lot of time with them, first of all, and a coach will instill leadership skills in you that you won't forget. So even as a teacher, I talk to a lot of educators, you know, when that kid call you years later and they remember you and they ask you for advice, like, that is when you know that you really, you know, meant something to them and instilled what you were trying to do, right? So, you know, I can kind of, you know, resonate a little bit.
Oh my, that light, and man, you just feel like, yeah.
It worked.
You know, it worked. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay, so let's fast forward to today, Dr. Bobby White. You are the founder and CEO of Frayser Community Schools. Tell me how this all came about. What is your mission? And, you know, we're going to get into Frayser Community Schools Day as well. So tell me about the present.
Yeah, the present. And I have to go back a bit to kind of bring us up to that. So after I left Cypress, I went to Hamilton High School. Love Hamilton, absolutely, for all the Hamiltonians out there. And I was the head baseball coach and assistant football coach. And, you know, I was only there for a year and a half. Ike White, the principal at the time, removed me from my classroom and made me an interim assistant principal while I was there. He pushed me on being a leader as opposed, and I was in my mind, I was always a leader, right? Because you're the CEO of your classroom. And if you're a coach, you are the CEO of those teams, right? And so, but he pushed me, and it became apparent because even at Cypress, Mr. Wall pulled me out of my classroom and made me an administrator to support around the school. So I recognized that at Hamilton that this is where my path was probably going to be. And so after Hamilton, I ended up taking an assistant principal job. And of course, I had to spend time getting a master's degree and an admin license. And I did that probably in an 18-month period. Like, I was like, well, if they're going to keep making me do the job, I need to get paid for it. Right. So I went ahead and got those additional, that additional degree and certification. And I ended up as the assistant principal at Vance Middle School with who's one of my closest friends who hired me. We were not friends at the time. We didn't even really know each other, but Leviticus Pointer. Many people in Memphis know Levi. He's one of my closest friends and mentor. We mentor each other. You know, we did something in South Memphis. You know, they called us the Batman and Robin of South Memphis. We walk foot in Claiborne homes every day. We got kids out of the bed. We changed what people thought about what Vance Middle School was. We moved the data, we moved the needle, and everybody was excited about the work that we were doing. But of course, I ended up moving pretty soon from there and becoming a principal at my own school, which was Westside Middle School. Which was, you know, in my hood. It was in Frayser, you know, and so I was there, became the principal there, and I think maybe in year two, you know, we went viral. I was known as the Urkel principal because we had an innovative approach to how we wanted to attack you know, the sagging issue. It was really, really challenging at that time. And so I became known as the Urkel principal. I was on Don Lemon, CNN, What Matters in America, a number of other national news media outlets and platforms. And about the middle of my second year, the governor in Tennessee created what he called the Achievement School District, which was to combat the lowest performing schools in the state, the bottom 5%, as he said. And so the person that he hired, Chris Barbick, who was the founder of Yes Prep, he and I ran into each other at a meeting at Frayser High School because he was coming in and he was going to take over Frayser High School. The idea for the Achievement School District from Chris Barbick was to take the lowest performing schools and give them to charter schools, right? Or take them over and allow the State Department to run them. Anyway, the parents were like, at that meeting at Frayser High School that night, they were like, if Coach White was the principal here at Frayser High School, the State Department wouldn't be trying to take it over, so on, whatever. And so he and I connected that night. We butted heads. You know, I was like, I'm here for the community. I don't know who you are, but I don't have a problem having a conversation with you because the talent, the social capital, and the belief in people is already here. So why are you here, right? Anyway, he asked me to go to take a trip with him to Houston to a graduation for Yes Prep. They call it Senior Signing Day. Senior Signing Day. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what they did was just like the athletes, every child at their charter school, in their high school, would walk to the stage and they would say their name and they would say, in 4 years, I will be graduating from, and then they put the hat on, St. John's, Vanderbilt, U of M, whatever it was. And these were all children that are reeked of poverty. They were from poverty. And you could tell it. And then after all of those students did that, their parents walked out of the audience down to the floor of the Toyota Center in Houston. and they sat at these big tables and they signed their letters of intent. And when you see people of poverty, because you know poverty when you see it, right? Clothes, body structure, posture, everything, lack of confidence, all of those things. And so by this time, Chris Barber looks at me and says, man, we can do this in Memphis. Better yet, we can do it in Frayser. And so by that time, I'm wiping the tears and trying not to let nobody see me crying. But at the end of the day, this is what I do. I feel this work. And so I was like, man, can we really do that? Because every child in that high school was committed to somebody's college, right? And so when I came back to Memphis, I put my 2-week notice in. Mm. You know, I let Shelby County Schools know, or pardon me, at the time, Memphis City Schools know that I was going to be leaving and I was going to start to work with the Achievement School District. Mm. At the time, I was being hired as the regional superintendent of the Achievement School District. I had thought that I was going to maybe operate the schools or run the schools in Frayser or what have you, because 12 of the 14 schools in Frayser were all a part of this bottom 5 list. Mm. And so I thought that maybe that Chris Barbeck, the superintendent of the state of the Achievement School District, was going to like have me in a role where it was traditional of what I understood. But that wasn't the case. Mm. What I had been hired to do was support him and recruiting national charter operators, the Green Dots of the world, the Aspires of the world, scholars, these different organizations from around the country to come in and take over the low performing schools in the state of Tennessee. Mm. I told him, I said, man, that's not what I signed up for. Right. Right. And so, and this is it's a much longer story, but I think I've shortened it enough to where you can understand it. At that moment, he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, man, I want to be Green Dot. Mm. I want to be Aspire. I want to be KIP. I want to be those national organizations. How do I do that? He's like, man, like the charter work is different from you just being a principal. I said, teach me. Mm-hmm. Right. And so at some point through, I submitted an application and a proposal to the Tennessee Charter School Center. I became there were 2 of us. I became one of the 2 inaugural fellows of the Entrepreneurial Fellowship Program, where they trained folks who had been school leaders, principals, in understanding how to start a charter management organization, gotcha. How to run multiple schools. Okay. So for the next 2 years, I spent time shadowing CEOs, CFOs, COOs of the largest charter organizations in the country to learn the game. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, I was writing my application to the State Department to take over an existing low-performing high school. I was approved. It was between Trezevant and Frayser High School. It's the obvious. I was going to take over Frayser High School, right? And so that was, I was approved, and I took over Frayser High School. And in the process, I started to think, it's time to rebrand my old high school. Mm-hmm. And I decided to change the name. Okay. I thought that, there had been too much negative publicity, that the folks in that community that were in that community at this point, going back to the great days of Frayser, like what does that mean to them, right? And so how do we start our new traditions and pride wrapped in something that's bigger than what they'd ever thought about? And since there was no King High School in our city, and we're a predominantly Black city, where Dr. King was assassinated, and there's no King High School, I said it makes all the sense in the world to rename the school MLK College Prep. And so I renamed the school, and we started MLK College Prep in that year. Wow, amazing. You know what? Your journey is really and truly amazing, Dr. White. You have been through so much to get you where you are today, right? And you're a leader in the Frayser area, in the community, and you have developed this
FCS Day. Tell me about FCS Day. We got one coming up.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what is the goal of FCS Day?
Well, over after MLK, over the next 3 years, we were afforded the opportunity to take over two more, or to have the opportunity to run two other neighborhood schools. To be clear, the charter schools are not like charter schools or the traditional charter schools. We serve the neighborhood school. There's no application. The child, if you were zoned to Frayser High School, you're still zoned to MLK. If you were zoned to West Side, you're zoned there. You're zoned to Humes, you're zoned there. So we have three schools now, and our 5th year anniversary was 2 years ago. And at that time, Joanne Massey, who had been one of the members of my inaugural founding board, she, along with the mayor, deemed May 23rd Frayser Community Schools Day for the city of Memphis.
Okay.
And so from that point forward, like this is the 2nd year after that, we just decided that, for one, that kind of distinction just speaks to, in my mind, what the city feels like our impact is, and how important we are to that community, the Frayser and North Memphis community. And we have an event, an annual event every year since that 5th year anniversary.
Yeah.
It's important because a Black-founded, Black-run organization in doing work in the community where I grew up is super personal, and I get on fire every day as a result of it. Yeah.
Yes, and I can't wait to assist in this wonderful day on May 23rd. I had a great time last year. I met so many amazing people as well that I've developed relationships since then. So I'm looking forward to it, Dr. White. When you're no longer here, what do you want people to remember about you?
Well, meaning when I'm like, they put the dirt on me, or when I'm not. Yeah. Hey. I think about that often, a part of why I left Shelby County's Memphis City Schools was because I believe in being actively anti-racist, and fighting the systemic and institutional racism from a policy perspective, and your actions following exactly what you believe about things. Many times in very large bureaucratic organizations, those are challenging because there's so much red tape and so many people you have to go through in order to figure things out, in order to really support, serve, and honor the people that we get the opportunity to work with in the way that they can. And so I want to be known as a servant leader who got it. This whole new term about being woke, it's like, maybe it's time for me to take a nap because I've been woke a long time. Like maybe I can doze off, because if everybody else is woke, then maybe I can doze off. But I can't doze off because I'm not sure, given the fact that I didn't see the type of outrage about this new legislation that I should have, that everybody is as woke as they say that they are, right? And so I want to be known as that servant leader that got it, that was a man of the people. Du Bois talked about this talented 10th and people making sure they reach back. I don't know if we would even call it that today, but of whom much is given, much is expected. And based on what I know, the things that I've been taught, Dr. Beverly Cross, second mom to me, the most brilliant person I've ever met, pushed me on understanding how we should be impacting the students that we serve and their families. And so I want to be just known as that servant leader that understands that, as well as, and that's number 2. And I know that was much longer than what number 1 is, but number 1 is I want to be known as a great father.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
my son is 15, my daughter's 29. Yeah, pretty big gap. But I just want both of them to know that I gave it all. I left it all out there, passionate, loved them, and everything I did every day. And wake up every morning, 3:45, 4 o'clock, excited about trying to do something that will impact their children's lives. And they'll be able to say, man, you know, our dad, he was a part of that. You
Yeah.
know, 10 years from now, whatever happens, let's be clear. You know, I feel like whatever is going on in Frayser, I was a part of being serving alongside all the other folks that are doing great work, and we made a change.
Yes.
And so those are the things that I want people to remember me by.
Well, I can tell you this, you will truly be unforgettable as this servant leader that you are indeed. We're not going to say woke. We're going to try to come up with another term for you,
Please,
Dr. White.
please.
But I
Yes.
have truly enjoyed you today on the Verbally Effective podcast. You are definitely blazing trails in the Frayser community. We're looking forward to FCS Day on May 23rd. I will be there. And I wish you nothing but the best, Dr. White. Your story is amazing and truly impactful. And I look forward to working with you in the future as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. And as I always tell everybody at the end, be legendary. Be legendary in your own time. Wake up every morning believing that you're the best at what you do. The three Mikes, Mike Tyson, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan. There was one time in their life where they knew absolutely, unequivocally, they were the best at what they did. How many of us wake up every morning believing that we're the best at what we do? We should. And if we do that, then we're legendary in our own time at whatever it is that we're doing in our life. And that's how we move the needle and make change.
Yes,
So
sir.
thank you for the time. And I just appreciate being able to share with you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And thank you.